We are live.
Mr. Chairman, it's 6:06 and you have a quorum.
Yes, we do. And thank you all for showing up. It's nice to be back. New color scheme. A lot of the same faces out here, but anyhow, let's get our show on the road and we will start off with roll call.
Greg Rice,
Here.
Anthony Murata,
Here.
Mark Hum,
Here.
Laura Starr, Ed LeBlanc,
Here.
Zaid. Juan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
We do have one. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for showing up. Who would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Oh, come on. Go ahead, Mark. I haven't heard you do it live in a while.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. Nice job. He knows all those fine words. Any other additions, deletions, or anything, Sherry? Or Sam?
No, I think we're good with the agenda the way it's written.
Good, thank you very much. Okay. Let's at the part of, anybody have a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting? No? Nobody? No. No, they weren't. They could have been, but they weren't. No, yes, it will be a test. Okay. Swearing in of staff. And of course, applicants, this is the audience participation part of the program. If you're gonna be speaking in any way, shape, or form this evening in front of this board, if you'd like to stand up and let Sherry swear you in.
Do you swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and so say yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Proof of publication, I'm sure we have that. No withdrawals, postponements other than what's printed tonight, and board disclosures, anybody talk to anybody? If you want to confess.
I talked to Arturo out in the parking lot, but not pro or con, just curious.
Just curious, okay, we're good. Anybody else? Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir. Thanks for letting us know. No unfinished business. We will skip over.
We need a motion on the,
Do we have to do it one at a time?
yes.
Okay. Since we're moving a couple of these cases to the next meeting, which is the 15th, I think. Need a motion to move those to date certain.
A motion of PZB project number 21-0050010 to date certain of June 15th, 2022.
Oh, sorry, 2022. There was an extra zeros.
Is that anything like this? Got anything like the 60-story building went
So in 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks? Exactly. Well, motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Unanimous decision. Thank you once again. Okay.
I move to postpone PZB project number 21-014000018 to date certain of June 15th, 2022.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any opposed? There is unanimous. Moving right on.
Aye.
Next. PBZ project number 22-005000002, I believe. Consideration of a conditional use permit request to establish an aquaculture hydroponic farming use in our industrial park of commerce, IPOC. It will, zoning district at 1900 7th Court North. The request is to establish the proposed use within the current 10,284 square foot industrial building. Take it away, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good evening, for the record, Scott Rodriguez with the City of Lakewood Planning and Zoning.
It doesn't work.
Okay, the item before you is the head culture's request for conditional use permit for a 4,940 square foot aquaculture hydroponic farming use located at 1909 Southern Fort North, and is within the Industrial Park of Commerce zoning district. The subject site is surrounded by adjacent parcels that also have an IPOC zoning district, and generally is compatible with the uses that are surrounding it. The use will be within the existing building with dedicated parking spaces at the north side of the bay. And if we can just go to the next slide, there is existing landscaping. The staff is going to condition the project to replace dead or missing vegetation where needed. There is some interior landscaping as well as some perimeter landscaping. The next slide is showing the site plan again of where the activity is going to take place. And the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan, strategic plan, city of LDRs for conditional uses. And staff is recommending approval of conditions. Staff is available for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Millar. I'm a senior project manager with Atwell. And I'm here representing the applicant, which is Eric Wong. Eric's available tonight to answer any of your questions. I'd like to start with thanking staff for their assistance and help. Their professional guidance was very important to moving this project forward. We're here to answer any questions. I don't want to belabor what staff presentation already offered to you. If there's any operational questions, we're licensed through various agencies of the state. Eric's here to answer those. We accept the conditions of approval as proposed. And we'd ask for your recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions right now?
I thought it's pretty wide. What would you? That I had a question. It's very wide ranging agriculture in general. What actually would you be growing there?
So,
What product?
Camp, right?
Correct. Industrial hemp, commercial hemp. Licensed to the Department of Agriculture. I'm gonna let Eric speak to that. That's the question.
Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
my name is Eric Wong. I'm the applicant. I'm the CEO of the Lakewood.
Okay. So it's a CBD type.
I'm sorry, what?
My
Address, please.
address is 1909 Southern Fort North.
Okay. Okay, so
Okay, no, my question was that, so it's basically hemp, which is a CBD type of operation, that would be it. Okay, I believe that there's other ones that are around, I mean, it is what it is. So those are my only questions, so what was being processed there, because it's a pretty wide ranging thing, you can do everything from flowers to CBD.
Explain to them what the process you go. So, we acquire our seeds through a association of certifying seed agencies, which is approved through the Florida Department of Agriculture. Our plants are inspected after they're sown. Prior to the purchase or wholesale, we don't sell it to the actual public. We sell it to Florida Department of
So you're not selling on the street corners?
No, they're starters. They go to seeds. They go to a variety of different hydroponic systems.
I understand.
And then when they come to a specific height, they're able to be inspected.
All right.
Just one question, because a lot of people don't really understand the hydroponic system and how it works.
I just will note that there is a staff condition of approval that says that retail sales are prohibited and outdoor storage is prohibited.
Aaron, will this be the first one for us in Lakewood?
I don't actually know. the answer, but most likely, I don't recall another one.
I don't recall. I'm coming through.
Mhm.
There's been a few operating.
There might be some home ones that we're not aware of. That may not be wholesale.
But we're step one, we're selling them electricity, so if they're here, like, we're make it a little. Or you have something.
Yeah, what is the difference between the following? Cultivator and marijuana?
So we have been approved to cultivate what's called cannabis sativa, that's a scientific name for it. Yes, marijuana and hemp do come from the same cannabis family, but the approved version that we cultivate is under a tolerance of 0.3 THC, which is lab tested and approved through certificate of analysis and we provide chain custodies through all of our various different labs. So agri science, great point research.
That's not tested by the state board.
No, the lab tests it and then they send the actual document.
Every crop.
100% of the partners. The partners will send the crop to test so they can work certain partners.
What is the active? Pieces?
This is a code case to address the use approval. That's what this conditional use permit is for. So they're in here to get use approval for the business license. And, oh yeah, that's.
But they're already operating,
Yes.
so they were operating without a license.
Or like,
I'll just. When Eric came to me, there was an issue regarding the business tax receipt. So we do have a code enforcement item that is going to be resolved at the end of the month. Once hopefully the conditional use is approved, then the business tax receipt, what I still call an occupational license, will be issued. We've had the building inspected several times for our use as well as the other tenants. So right now, the business tax receipt is being withheld until we establish our conditions. But we intend to be in compliance with all standards and regulations. I'm sorry, ma'am?
Are they planning on-
4, maximum of 4.
Are those employees all Lakewood residents?
Are they all Lakewood residents?
Oh, no, it just says here that, you know, this will contribute towards the city's tax base and sustain on this job.
Well, I mean, the operation and the business tax, well, I can't speak to where our employees, but I think if we balance it, will certainly add to the applicant base.
How long have they been operating their own business?
We've been there.
Can you come up to the mic?
Anyway,
When we established was on the 28th of December of last year. First year, established utilities, and granted them in our name. And then we went backwards, so that we were told that we needed to get a business tax receipt, but before we got a business tax receipt, we had to get a conditional use permit. So we followed all the compliance steps and to do this. That's all been served, we went through all the inspections, going through all, technical or documented processing, to the city. I've applied again for the BTR again this morning, in good faith. Just trying to comply with all the requirements from the city as we move forward.
I'm sorry, what is the BTR? Are you living in this place?
Business tax.
Let me recognize the people in the public. The BTR is a business tax receipt, a Lakewood business license, has three components: business tax receipt, a use and occupancy certificate, and then required inspection that may happen from initiation of business to change of ownership, or every 3 years.
Are you living there?
No.
Yeah, what your address was.
Oh, no, I didn't know if it was, yeah, I didn't know if it was addressing the business. My address is 3434 Road, College Gardens. 3412.
Question down here. How many lights do you operate?
There's a total of. I'm sorry. Let's see, there's a total of 64 lights in that. We have a current of 5,000.
How high do you grow? What,
They go to approximately 36 inches before they get inspected and, you know, that time to come out and take a top and send it to the lab.
are you gonna, harvest and manufacture oils and
That's phase two of our business. We're not really there yet. We're trying to build a bigger network, to establish more farming and agricultural. We sell to wholesale, we will sell to other farmers and, that's.
Florida or all of you?
Florida right now.
And they go from your hydroponic garden to someone else's hydroponic garden? Why do you, if your ultimate goal is to harvesting yourself, why you're selling to other people?
So they can have a head start on their crop season. They choose 3.5 months off their crops, and they don't have to go through the initial hunting phase of trying to find actual genetic that is stabilized and resistant to certain pests.
When do you plan on changing the business model or the model, expand the business model at the same facility? And what's the capacity of that facility?
As of right now, we currently have 2,000 or 51 with that space. We are at the capacity of business yet. So we have more.
what other businesses are in that building?
I believe ProMed is attached to the building.
Ambulance service,
There's a-
ProMed and ambulance service.
Next building?
Mark, yes.
Is this your first business with this, or did you move it from somewhere else, or?
No, this is my first business. Prior to this, I was a firefighter.
For Palm Beach Gardens?
No, I retired due to medical issues. This plant actually helped save my life.
Anybody else have a question?
A couple of questions.
Right.
Or it's a hydroponic, so you're using domestic water.
So New City, the water,
Yes, yeah, it's city water, yes.
but it goes through like,
Filtration.
filtration and chlorinators and reverse osmosis. It filters all the water out. It's zero part.
Do you have wastewater also?
Wastewater, it's in the drain, it's not out through the drain. The rest of
Go to the sewer.
yeah, just.
It's not black water, it's just with gray water out of your sink, correct?
Okay. Do you use insecticides?
We don't use insecticide, we use like organic stuff, peppermint oil, citrus oil, like different stuff that would not. We don't have pests, but we try to prevent them, so we're our internal integrated pest management system is for that purpose, so hang beneficial bugs, bad bugs, just in case there were.
And you use fertilizer also?
Yeah, there's salt-based fertilizer. It comes in the bag with Venus Museum. The hydroponic.
Pretty amazing.
It is, I've not seen one here, I've seen it, out west. Go ahead.
You try and put this somewhere that, like, works the only place that you.
No, but we also have another location in the park, which we've already had, where we have.
Same, right,
Yeah, the crop going for that.
same side.
No, it's a smaller unit. So we, this space.
How long have you been in the Lake Park location?
The Lake Park has been, we started the lease in February of this year.
22?
And get there, so we're in the process to until our launch, but we're not prepared yet, so. We're not there, but we are in the process of.
Back to my final question. County or city? You
So
did-
I didn't.
you said you were injured or had an accident or something,
So I was not working for the city.
or Palm Beach County.
No, I was actually, through the process.
Okay.
During that process, I had child benefit, and it was, it was under control for many years. The job did not. But over time, it started to get.
We might be getting a little far afield.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's,
Yeah, we don't want to violate any HIPAA laws.
Yeah. it is on YouTube, and his personal medical history might be
Right.
a little much.
We're glad to see you healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
Anybody else have questions? Up and down the bench, I see no head bobbling. Okay, anybody else want to, or who wants to, or does anybody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, just a clarification.
Yes, please.
Just a clarification that the project does go into phase 2. Staff will review that.
At that time.
Just want to make that clear.
Does the city have any limitations or parameters? No, we had a woman before us. Last year, or the year before, who was CPG business. And I think the city had limitations around it.
That was the one on
So,
Dixie Highway.
This,
think.
if I
That
can
was
just speak to that, this is not a retail distribution. There are limits on retail. This is a wholesale agricultural operation, and it's licensed as such to the state. So there are no limitations. If he was conducting retail sales, first of all, it would not be permitted at this location because this is in an industrial zoning district. So they're not allowed to do retail sales per the uses in the industrial district. They can only do wholesale sales. And if that were to change, then that would be a violation of the zoning district and the use permit before you today. So,
My question.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are dispensary limitations. If you all approve 20, then yes. So there could be. So, and
But your decision should be based on the use and the appropriateness of the hydroponic agricultural use, not necessarily the product that is being grown.
Why is that?
Because it's an agricultural product that's approved by the state, same as any other.
Where does it say that? But we should consider the same thing as the product. Say that somewhere?
The land development regulations do not make a distinction on what you're actually developing. No, and so with that provision, in agricultural and appropriate development, regardless of what it is, as long as it's a legal item, we don't have any jurisdiction over saying we can only grow one hydroponic wheat or hydroponic corn and or with, they're all considered agricultural products in the LPR.
RC is LDR, what's the info?
It's the LPR.
Any other questions down there? Let me ask it again. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Will you?
When you report that,
Oh, that's right. Did we get it? Did we get any letters? Pro, con, nothing?
No.
Good. Is there any members of the public who'd like to come up and speak on this? Look it up. I think we got that cleared up. Okay. Who would like to try?
I move to approve PZB project number 22-005-00002 with staff recommended conditions for conditional use permit request to establish an aquaculture hydroponic farming use and cultivation facility used in the industrial park of commerce zoning district located at 19097 Fort North based on upon the comment substantial evidence provided in the staff report and in the testimony of the public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. One thing,
motion carries 5-1.
5-1. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much.
Good luck. You too. Good luck to you.
Chairman, one other issue that was up for clarification, the additional item when we were talking about expansion in terms of processing, that would have to come back to be seen by you, even if the space is not get larger.
Right.
You know,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Waters. Okay, moving right along. This is yeah. Consideration of an ordinance amending chapter 23. Where you going?
Oh, I really, it's not to
Amendment chapter 23, land development regulations, article 2, administration, division 3 permits. Section 23.2-31, related to site design and qualitative standards. Please take it away.
Good evening. I just wanted to read the caption of the ordinance into the record. This is ordinance 2022-11, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations, article 2 administration, division 3 permits, section 23.2-31, site design qualitative standards, providing for standards for buildings and providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and effective date.
Thank you.
Okay, as a little bit of a prelude to this, there were 3 ordinances you're going to hear tonight that were all predicated on direction from the city commission received between last March of 2021 and a subsequent workshop a couple of months ago. And so this first piece addresses commission concerns related to the quality of the architecture being seen within the city, not only in its historic districts, but also its major thoroughfares. And the other part was a request by several commissioners to have a higher performance standard related to sustainability in terms of the projects that are seen. So this item addresses both of those. If you go to the next slide. So the qualitative standard related to buildings have a strengthened item related to architectural style, integrity, and improvement architecture, which basically means that if you're going to have an architectural style, it needs to be true to that style and be represented in its detail and the items that are used to articulate that architecture. There's further clarification on what harmony means in relation to height, setback, and massing. There's also a building transition and streetscape respect item. Building transition basically is discussing how a building transitions from a higher building to a lower building or vice versa. And then also we have a great deal of interest in pedestrian friendliness and a attractive streetscape. So there's additional criteria related to how the building invested the street and the experience. There are facade breaks in the leaf lines required of architecture, and that means that along a building facade, there needs to be a break in the way the articulation is done, the penetration is done, and the articulation, the architectural detailing, so that the building does not, if it's large, it's not really a large building, but more in terms of the relationship to existing buildings within Lake Worth, which have historically been 35, 37.5, 50, 75, and 100 feet. We also have provisions that help improve the way a building addresses the public rights of way and how it presents itself to the public. That's the first part. Then we get into building performance standards, which are very similar to LEED, which is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, Green Globes, or the WELL Building Standard. This is getting at trying to reduce greenhouse gases, carbon footprint, and have buildings that support the city's overall commitment to sustainability. And some of you may know that our department was set up not based just on environmental or economic sustainability, but other aspects. So this performance standard is going to be Lake Worth one, which a developer has to provide a performa that explains how their building and project meet the following items based on a standard building of a similar type that will be built. Some things are affected by the energy code, some would be affected by the building code, some would be affected by general accepted standards in engineering or ASHRAE in terms of recyclable materials, water usage, refuge stream, but these are basic. We do have in the report according to the city commission, we will need an additional staff person to review these. I mean, I have a LEED certification accreditation, but this is a little bit beyond what I can handle today. It will add a level of complexity to our projects, but it is the direction that many cities are going. And this is a first step toward possibly in the future requiring something as stringent as Green Globes, WELL, or LEED. You'll notice too, the building performance has to also deal with multimodal aspects for transportation, safety features, which keep coming up with the city commission. We go to the next slide, Aaron, please. We also would like the projects to respect the community pride and social interactions that are important to the city and build awareness for our preservation and enhancement of community sustainability. And under our community sustainability definition, all those little items under there are parts of what we are trying to foster greater awareness and appreciation for them, as well as encourage their broader understanding. This is cultural resources, historical resources, ecological and natural resources, diversity and inclusion, social justice, economic investment, neighborhood vitality. No, that's it. And so we're trying to ensure that the buildings and products that come in stand for what Lake Worth stands for. And I'll try to answer the questions you might have.
How many architects do we have on the current commission?
No.
Okay.
Probably not.
Didn't think so. How much money do we have set aside for this new person to work?
None.
Okay. How many vacancies do we have in your department right now as it relates to the building side?
The building side, we have one. We have a new division coming that will make it two. The planning and zoning and preservation division has a vacancy. Code compliance has 5 vacancies. The preservation staff is fully staffed, but the people aren't all here yet. We're waiting for the last person to arrive, hopefully next month. This will be a new position, the sustainable bonus trust fund account, which has some money in it. And as you may recall, back in May of last year, the commission requires half of that money coming to be paid to the city. That fund could be utilized to help fund our outside consultant to begin the initial reviews of the project until there are enough projects in the pipeline that will require full-time staff. I don't foresee that happening immediately. It probably will be handled by an outside consultant, and I'll review their whether they come up with any recommendations after that.
Questions, anybody?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, William, for the pretty thorough explanation. You actually answered several of my questions already in that. And I think the one in the backup material, I think it was missing this, and it went right from the other ones. That was the first part. This may be from what Greg was just asking, where it, in the new section 16, it references a third party that's verifying the requirements. Is that what you were just answering?
Well, there may be a requirement of a third party verifier hired by the developer. Whoever develops that performer or writes the performer needs to have some credentials in order to actually speak intelligently about what we're asking for. And then we'll have it verified by our third party or myself or staff person.
Okay. So they're the one who's,
Because not everybody knows how to use like refuse stream or use of the water.
well, that's why I'm asking. It's all, well, certain parts are very specific, the other part is the correct thing. So subsections A through E, my question was, where did those percentages come from? But you stated, I believe, they're based on. Is that correct?
There's both of the, most of the projects and green roads have to have a certain percentage of improvement just to get into the program. It's a prerequisite. And so some of our numbers are based on very close to those, which is the baseline for demonstrating the project as being environmentally or socially conscious.
Good. And so are those percentages at the moment, 11 or 20, some are 10, are those lower than these ones? Or they
So when you gain points in these, the better that you do.
okay.
And so ours is basically the prerequisite that is required essentially, where you don't get any points. You've got to do that no matter what.
Okay.
And so we base our program very similar to what is required no matter what for a good project. And if they want to do better, great. If they don't, they can at least meet this. That's an improvement of what we have now.
Okay. And you made that last part of the answer to this question. Why not go higher than that? This is an improvement over what we've got now.
Well, what we have now is not this at all.
Understood.
And so I do not want, and this commission, if you tag on this and the other item that's coming, we will be increasing the cost to develop in Lakewood Beach. And there's no other city that I'm aware of in Florida that has even a baseline requirement of environmental social consciousness required as a project, regardless of what size it might be.
Yeah, I saw that social justice.
So in subsections F through J, those seem very vague.
That's basically your right to explain to us how your project does that.
Well, that's where I'm going with this, and I'm not an architect, I'm not a developer, a builder, but I do understand most things in business, like some certainty. I know one of the items that's come up in the past about some of the issues, you've been here for a while, that Lakeport Beach had is someone would come in here and there was a rat's nest of code and ambiguity and a lot of open things for, whoever the person du jour was to say, I don't agree with that, I don't like whatever it was. So it removed it or lacked a lot of uncertainty. And as I was reading that, and again, I'm not an expert, so I'm asking you, these do seem very vague. So can you give me some examples of how one might comply with those if they're building or doing a renovation, for example, to achieve the goal of social justice or neighborhood vitality, and how that would be evaluated and fully complied with? So how would someone come in and meet those standards?
There's actually a slide on here.
Okay, please go back there.
Do you want me to go to the ordinance, William?
Yeah, but I want to first, it doesn't apply to every single project in the city. There's a threshold that we should hit. It wouldn't have a renovation project. There are a number of dissertations and studies. I came across all of this at Harvard, doing 3 different programs that are 3 different summers about the need for communities to embrace equity across all parties that are part of the city. So a project here should incorporate a variety of mechanisms to deal with cultural resources. As an example, part of its sustainable bonus program could be a display about the cultural heritage of Lakewood Beach. So say a display on camping names and how Lakewood Jewel came about. I could have resources or a mural that dealt with historic resources. Most of it is building education and awareness of what's already in the city. Social justice is, and since it's probably going to come from the Gulfstream Hotel project, is that an awareness and openness of a project that everybody, whoever they might be, whatever walk of life in Lakewood Beach, is welcome to utilize and visit that project. As part of where you feed together the addressing the public right of way, the pedestrian experience, the quality of architecture. Everybody can learn from that. And the goal is that anybody in Lakewood Beach can appreciate and gain something from a new project versus in some circles, certain projects are considered very exclusionary. and that certain people aren't allowed there or aren't welcome there. It's been beaten into my head over the 11 and a half years that Lake Worth Beach embraces everybody, the cultural richness and diversity, and the projects that are here, people who live here should feel welcome and be a part of that project, even if they don't own it, don't live there, don't work there. And so that's part of it. And so explaining how a project might do that, it is a big esoteric and rather nebulous, but it's very hard to put an actual qualitative, quantitative figure on some of this stuff. We're going to probably have to base it on input from staff, and when it comes to a board for review, part of it will be a learning curve, and precedent will set at what point the projects meet certain criteria. And it will be a learning curve, and it will, as you have alluded to, might bring down the project's predictability. However, there are projects that include items like this as part of green growth and well building, definitely. And there's a new aspect of it in Lee that gets to social justice. So there are criteria in those of how you meet it, for examples of what a project can do. And so I didn't want to get so specific that it's one of the things that's really cool about Big Beach is that it's one reason why we don't dictate you have to do one architectural style. As long as you're true to a style, we're open to anything. Lake Worth Beach is diverse, and so how you choose to approach something, having it be a little bit more open-ended, and then allowing creativity from the developer, the architect, the cultural resource managers that may be involved, is I think where Lake Worth Beach would like to go, versus it being, okay, everything that relates to social justice has to be X.
You answered my question. And then, so two last ones here, and one more is, in the same section, how would you determine if it's fully complied with the requirements of efficient use of natural resources through use reduction, reuse, reclamation, and recycling? You know, there's some standards to that. Is it just looking at it and saying, well, you know, you got a bunch of Chicago brick here in your fireplace, your chimney, we're going to rip it down and make a patio. How is that actually gauged for someone submitting that for approval?
There's some basic parameters in the three certifications that I mentioned. There's another one that's growing in popularity, and you cannot remember the name of it. It's in a presentation that I gave called Sustainable Site Design. And again, it's going to be the developer on them to argue and explain how they want to meet that. But I don't want to dictate them either. We've got to be listed to that. Recyclable materials are great deal of information out there now about the chain of custody, cradle to cradle, cradle to grave. Well, for the price to be the cradle to cradle, which is the resource coming out of the ground, being processed, it's traveling, it being used, it being returned to the ground at some point, versus cradle the grave where it's just thrown away. And so how a building could demonstrate cradle to cradle approaches, or utilization of various aspects that would reduce its natural resource reliance. Let's say that, you know, somebody came in, the best example is the best way to reduce carbon footprint is not to tear a building down, but if you got to tear a building down, try to utilize as much of what is there as possible. And incorporation of those aspects, so that should be part of that as well.
And then I guess now some just verification. What I heard you say at the beginning is that what this is a culmination of what you've been tasked with from the city commission starting last March through, I think you said a few weeks ago in a workshop, and we're making a recommendation. So essentially what we have here is the city commission has come up with this. It's before us to recommend back to them what they requested, if they should approve it or not. Right.
Correct.
Thank you. Laura, you got anything on this?
What types of properties?
Laura, your
What
mic.
types of properties will this?
It will affect any of them that go through a major site plan process.
Okay, so it's not residential. Not, what about like?
Could be some of that.
Yes.
Well, CBS comes in the major site plan, it would have. If it stays at the staff level, it could be up or not, it be required, which under our code now, a minor site plan or minor site plan approval department should approve the staff. It's like 75%. above that to come to the board. So it's going to apply to a lot of projects, but we have lots of little ones that it would not apply to.
A lot of criteria sound probably subjective. I would have to. Some very vague, just how overcome. Subjective nature of some of the requirements.
Again, we have projects that definitely have been detrimental to community pride in a variety of ways, and each community specifically. They could be done better. How a developer approaches a project and how demonstrating and understands what Lakeport Beach means, what its values are, how its strategic plan, which you've now been incorporated in one of our staff reports, gets at the heart of what Lakeport Beach is. There have been recommendations that Lakeport Beach architecture should maintain the flavor, character, taste, atmosphere of Lakeport Beach. That can be esoteric.
I was gonna say.
But it's becoming more clear that Lakeport is a unique place to invest and to be. And so if you don't understand the uniqueness of Lakeport Beach, you're not going to get this. Not every developer is going to get this, and I think it's become rather apparent that not every developer would be welcome in Lakeport Beach. And so we're getting at those who buy into the meaning of what Lakeport Beach is. And that's going to evolve a little bit more on there's been a meeting session with the commission to further enhance and build on a strategic plan. So some of this is actually pulled directly from the strategic plan that was adopted I think 3-4 years ago. The 2025 vision. And we can provide copies of that for you if you like. This mentioned it's got pillars and objectives and goals that get at these various aspects. And so if the commission further enhances and moves on those will be incorporated by reference.
So, Mr. Chair, as part of your consideration of this ordinance, if you all would consider also recommending an amendment to this paragraph 16 that we've been discussing a lot of, so that it applies to projects that are coming forward for major site plan review. Because right now it's drafted as all buildings, and you know, that's something to consider as well.
Wait, were you here when John Romano was filming the,
Yes. Well, I wasn't with the city, but I was in West Palm Beach.
you were in West Point?
And I was collaborating with John Zuri on Epiplex with Frank Navarro, and John was working on the Epiplex.
We were quite proud of that building when it was done. I don't know that he was, but we the city were,
It was not finished.
I know.
Unfortunately, half of it's not built,
Yeah,
and it never got its certification. So. We don't, I think the only lead certified building we have is our private residence in College Park.
yeah. What's your-
And it's flat.
How does this work with the sustainable bonus program that we have? Is it somehow dovetail with that, or
They
is
work,
that
they work
going
together.
away?
No, it's not going away. It has been modified by the commission thereby. Half of the value that you had to put into a project on site now have to be paid in the form of a check to the city. So any building that's above 2 stories, the preliminary floors that are not bonuses based on development, you have to invest $7.50, half of which is a check to the city. In a planned development, if you're in that realm of additional density, higher intensity, those square feet are $15 a square foot, of which $7.50 is paid to the city. And then on top of that, we have a transfer development program that's $15 a square foot, which is an outright check to the city. But you can get additional height, density, and depending where you are in the city. This supports and gets at requiring more sustainable type features that the commission has expressed as being important. We have included in the past items that look more at the financial sustainability of the project versus its cultural, historic, or social justice sustainable aspect. Because the only reason one way it was popped out originally was that we were trying to encourage developers not only invest in the city, but invest more in their project than they were required to by code by providing amenities on those sites that the city could not provide. We're at a different point now, and it seemed that that is it's sort of a little bit inclusionary or exclusionary because those amenities on site are not open to the public. And so we're evolving out of that a little bit so that the city has a revenue stream so it can provide some of these sustainable features in terms of infrastructure or housing and other aspects to the public at large.
If a project was above the threshold, potentially like if there was a plan development or something like that, they would need to comply with this new set of regulations, but they would still be
Yes,
available to use the sustainable forest.
yes.
Project that is sort of around it. That's social adjustment. Private residential complex, but they should expect to have to welcome anybody and everybody.
It's like into the property that incorporated came out of a vision session for downtown that projects need to provide more public space on their front. So say the building is pulled back from the street, two of the scenarios, is that a public square or place to gather or in increasing in building the public space. We have a lot of areas where the sidewalk is minimal at best. And the experience of walking by that building is harsh, it's unfriendly. And so a building that embraces being pulled back a little bit further from the street, providing shade, seating, some public art to appreciate, a welcomeness that, you know, if you wanted to sit down and rest, and I know there's certain people that may not want other kinds of people to sit down and rest, but that would probably be, that would be the fact. Like I said before, it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve because this is the first foray into this in the whole state, and I'm not sure I'm prepared because it's been far in requiring this commitment to sustainable overall design and architecture. But this is what I was directed to try to create, so here we are.
I would like you to put some of that verbiage in the introduction after we write all of this up. So that
There will be,
Commission.
I have to review the envision brochure, but you came with the envision thing that was that perhaps after you do that whole brochure, if he's all fast. Because the other two pieces affect that brochure as well, so we're gonna be revamping that whole thing. That's next.
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
Just a follow-up, William, on one item that you mentioned with the sustainable bonus, and now that it's a check to the city, I think you said $750 over 2 feet, and then $15. Well, okay. And then above that, given the affordability crunch that's going on, is that not counterintuitive to that, to make it more expensive to developers to go up if we're trying to increase density and keep costs down? Does not actually raise the cost of housing, less available?
That you can come to that conclusion.
Okay. Thank you. I heard that it seemed a little counterintuitive, so. We're going for it here.
Another-
Look, I'm all up for the city raising revenue. That's
The
great.
next ordinance
Just
that
goes
comes
against.
the third one is going to address the affordable housing crisis.
I saw.
Anything else? Anybody else? Have? So what do we have to do on this particular ordinance?
Make a recommendation to the city commission, and I would recommend that you include the language that Ms. Lynn had mentioned about it applying to major site plan and above.
Right.
It will go forward the way it is with that as a recommendation from the city planning and board. We slap it over for the conservation board as well next week. The next week.
Okay. Anybody want to be creative on that?
I will.
Well, throw it out there and let's start with it.
All attempts. I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments included in ordinance 2022-11, striking the all developments part or similar language that I'm not getting right, with major site plan revisions only, and with more specifics on how it would be objectively and fairly evaluate those. It's the end of my motion
For paragraph 16.
for paragraph 16. It's the end of my motion. I'm just going to tack on a comment to that. I don't know. I'm looking at this coming before us.
Right.
If this was sitting in front of us, I would have zero idea in the world how to fairly evaluate somebody's project, whether they achieved it, they didn't achieve it, whether they didn't go far enough. It would become totally subjective. And I just don't see how that in itself would be very fair or equitable to those coming forward. So that would be my with that. That it's revised with specifics. Otherwise,
Second, and I'll give you an example of, I didn't really want to get in the arena of, things being partially nebulous. But many communities, when they are looking at a project, that wants extras, and I can't help but use restaurants as an example. They just have this broad catch-all. Is it a benefit to the community? Is it good for the city? And the developer comes up with an argument, tax base, new people, whatever, and the commission and the boards there take it or leave it. This is moving our development review process more into that world. Well, you have to make an argument that your project meets these. And your questions may be more intensive than they have been because our code has been very predictive. Do you meet the criteria or do you not? There's going to be more reliance on you as a board, as well as preservation board and ultimate public commission in many cases to articulate good questions and challenge the developer to prove their point.
isn't predictive a good thing?
It is a good thing.
Developers and
It is,
developer
but
cheerleader or anything, but anytime you're wanting, investment into the city, which provides for public services and provides for, the continued conversation of being able to afford the,
Okay.
so I don't want to say subsidizing housing, but it is a form of that. If you're creating incentives through dollars that's subsidizing that type of housing. But I thought predictability is good. Isn't that what helps city codes and LDRs for those coming in when they're investing a lot of money? They don't have to say resubmit their plan 4 times like the hotel.
yes.
Okay.
Looking back on history, if I might say, at the time that I spent on this board, that was a big problem when I first got here, 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. There was very little predictability. So we weren't attracting some of the investors, the bigger investors that were building this at the time. I think the only thing we've got going to our advantage now is there's less available parcels either they can tear down, reduce, whatever today. So eventually, even some of the bigger players are going to have to give this community another look. So to come up with a project or what have you. So there's a lot to be learned from what we've done in the past. So we don't have to stumble down that road again. But that was one of the reasons that maybe some of the things that we do now are somewhat more dangerous.
Right, and I've said that before, and I've thanked staff, and I've looked at our LDRs and said, this is really helpful for us. Whereas the historic board, I feel like theirs is very subjective. Looking at it, is this one to the right? Is this window a quarter inch in the right spot? We're in a position where we have very predictable. They know what they're coming at, staff knows what they're doing, and we know what we're looking. So that's where this is coming from. It's just very hard for me to wrap my mind around and trying to put others as how anyone at all would evaluate those things. That's where my emotion of that. And I gave a big part to it myself. I'll acknowledge that because I don't really know exactly how to do that. That's just wanting to do that there. You're the expert, really. That's something for you to come up with.
Your first project will probably be here in about 6 months. We'll see how it goes.
He says that with a smirk on his face. For you at home, they can't see him
I'm gonna have to help them a lot.
because his back is to the camera. He said that with a smirk on his face.
It almost makes us kind of exclusive to certain developers.
Yes.
So we're like a private city now. Well,
Okay, and there are developers who focus on this type of development exclusively. And so we have one who you might hear from soon. This is not being applied to them, but they are having to incorporate a variety of these items in their project. You know, may get before you in 3 months or so.
I would think that where we could rely on LEED or on any other green building program, I mean, they spend a lot of energy, you know, figuring out
And ours.
potentially objective ways to sort of analyze things that at first seem almost intangible.
Those are much more difficult to achieve than what we've got here. And we have to have LEED requires a accredited professional involved in it. There's a whole application, there's fees associated with it. We're not even proposing to charge additional fee for this. I don't believe that may change and get the commission. And we realize we have to have another staff person or an outside consultant help confirm some of this stuff. But again, this is the base level that's required of some of those projects before they can even get into the point where they can earn points to get either a certification, silver, gold, or platinum. So the starting point. I don't want to jump into where we have to have a lead, we have to have a clean road, we have to have a well building.
All right, and that
we
could
will,
be expensive as well.
we will probably have very little development.
They require that. Yeah, it can be legal to require it as well.
It can be probably the only way we could require it is in exchange for projects that are not strictly by right.
There's lots of about it, so that's.
Is there enough meat on that bone for us to write a recommendation to the commission?
There's a motion on the floor.
I know there is.
For sure. I mean, we will summarize the discussion and I know that the city commission, when they're considering items, they do, I know some of the commissioners read your minutes and as well. So the minutes and the discussion summary and then the specific motion will be forwarded to the city commission. And then this will also go to the Historic Preservation Board next week as well for their comments and feedback.
I'd sure like to see it before it was sent to the commission.
Don't you sign this?
I'd second.
There's no way that we could get a list to come back before this group and actually see what Anthony said. Again, right?
We can
No.
definitely provide you a copy of the ordinance before the commission. We have a 2-week window thereabouts. Or it will have to be posted with them after the preservation board. So we can definitely give you the ordinance again.
I'm certainly like to see it.
Can I ask a question to clarify? You're not gonna rewrite this, though. We're just going, our motion is what it is. This is gonna go just like that, but our motion is saying, hey, you should make this more specific. And that's all that's gonna happen. So Greg, nothing's being rewritten.
Okay.
All we're gonna do is say, we didn't like how vague this was. You should look at make it more specific, and they'll say, thanks.
Yeah.
And we'll incorporate the threshold that you mentioned. On that, on 116.
No matter what we say, it's going forward.
If you make recommendations to alter it, those can be incorporated as recommend. The planning and we're recommending all these changes be undertaken. City commission could take or leave them, add some, incorporate some of the ones you recommend, not other ones. And then those changes will be incorporated in first and second reading. If it's extensive enough that it changes popular title, we have to re-advertise and do it for another one over again.
Right, so someone could propose an adjustment very specific to my motion and say item G and then tack on something. That's all the table. If anybody wants to do that, you can have it. Anything very specific to these things.
Or if you feel like, in your capacity as the local planning agent, that certain ones on this shouldn't be included at all, you can recommend that you start to restrict it. We'll pass that recommendation on to the city commission.
There's an opportunity.
You can also say, I don't like any of that, and we'll take that recommendation to the city commission.
Just a disclaimer, I spoke to Sharon that I have a limited time today, so I don't know, I don't know if you guys want to vote or whatever, but I gotta go. So.
You gotta go though, or you got
something that. Pressing. Anyway.
That being said, we have a motion and we have a second, and with all this vast knowledge, we're just standing to dispute on this, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-1.
5-1.
Good luck with the next.
Next two are easier.
I hope so.
It should be. Micro units for.
Just give me 2 seconds.
I don't recall this item actually ever making it to the planning and zoning and preservation boards, when it was first put out there in 2017. It was presented to the city commission workshop back then. It was not supported to move forward. It's been brought back, as a way to help, address the affordable housing crisis, not only in the city, but in Palm Beach County and the state of Florida. So micro units, the board just. Want me to? Yeah. The ordinance stuff, I'm sorry.
Sure. We're now going to discuss ordinance number 2022-13, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations. Article 1, general provisions, division 2, definitions, section 23.1-12, definitions, adding a new definition for micro unit. And article 4, development standards, adding a new section 23.4-25, micro units, providing for development standards for micro units, and providing for severability, complex codification, and effective date.
So, as you may have read in the paper, I'm not sure you did or not, there did an article on our micro unit proposal, which the county, is very supportive of. I got some feedback, and I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow at the Economic Summit in Palm Beach County. I'm not quite sure. But in any event, micro units have been around for a little while. Our ordinance is a step into this arena in that they're only going to be allowed in mixed use districts, which are those that are along major thoroughfares. Multifamily districts and single family residential since 2014, these aren't allowed because there is a modicum of personal service commercial that's required as part of the project. A micro unit is anywhere from 257 square feet, and can be no more than 2 bedrooms. Has a full kitchen and a bathroom. It is a full dwelling unit, if you will. Some, as I understand, there are proposals in the county to have micro units be more like single room occupancies or shared facilities. We require you to have a full dwelling unit, as is described by our minimum housing code. For the purposes of density, a micro unit will only count as 3/4 of the unit. In addition, because the units are small, there is shared common area that's required to be incorporated in the building that is shared by everyone, and that's equal to 10% of the gross residential area. So let's say there's a 700 square foot unit, you have to provide 75 square feet of shared common area. There's also a minimum number of units, I think it's 20, required you can have a project to begin with. There's also exterior common area elements that are required, and this is in addition to whatever is required under the LDRs for site plan, open space, landscaping, that sort of thing. Which is kind of what the last thing is. It has to be everything else that we have. There is, to go to the next slide, there is a reduction in the parking requirement. The project must provide a mixture of uses. The parking requirements are relaxed. There are performance standards for the common area. There's a list of like a commissary kitchen, library, virtual office space, game room, things that you wouldn't, you might have in your own house if it were bigger. But you can't have it necessarily because these units are smaller, they're in a shared area. There are a number of standard apartment complexes that are incorporating these into your common areas as well. And so I've listed as the bottom the various zoning districts that would allow these, the TODs, east and west, downtown, mixed use east, which includes, parts of Federal Highway, all of Dixie Highway, 6th Avenue South, 10th Avenue North, Lake and Sun River Road. That would be the next question. Well, there's not much to really cover on this. It will just be incorporated. There'll be another option. You could mix micro units with standard unit projects. And so this one would really.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Will, you mentioned that, and we put in there, 0.75 for density, other than the fact that they're just small. Why do they count for 0.75? Literally just because they have a smaller footprint.
Well,
So the person,
well, okay, and then you have a project, we have standard zoning amounts of the density in areas that are 20 units an acre or 30 units an acre. Well, if the units start getting smaller, then there's a chance that the economics would not render themselves to build these units which are affordable if the densities are kept the same. If I can build 10 units at 1,000 square feet at a certain rent, why would I build 10 units on 750?
okay, so if you have a piece of land this big and you put 30 normal size units, you put 30 of these, it's gonna be like, so we're giving more room for that.
Or you can
That
put more,
part
you
of
can-
the parking,
that,
I mean, I saw it has its own parking sets, but would that not affect
yeah,
the part? So are the parking requirements adjusted on that? It would seem in here they're being moved
They
more
are.
favorable to develop.
They are reduced because again, these are required in the mixed use districts where there should already be transit or transit plan.
Okay.
And because the buildings are required to be mixed use, hopefully some of the services you would have that would require a car for you to get there, would already be incorporated in your building.
I don't know. How are these any different than, say, an apartment building? Apartment building are smaller units that are just shared wall and they have common amenities. Whatever, pool, all the things that you listed there, a pool, a game.
They're basically all the same.
So what would?
We're just
motivate-
allowing a much smaller unit. And in exchange, you've got to provide required shared amenities for everyone to have. This. Some apartment complexes are built in the city that have nothing. They're a parking lot and apartments. And that's it.
So a small time builder or investor developer could go and buy whatever, 2 lots together, a half acre in the right area, and instead of building a traditional little small building of say 8 units, they could maybe make 16 in that same thing and just have them.
Possibly, yes.
Okay, you did answer this one already. It's not multifamily, it's mixed units,
Mixed use.
right? I'm sorry, mixed units. I'm putting micro unit in there together. And they have to be clustered in 20, correct?
Right.
And someone could not just build one in the back there, obviously.
That's 80. That makes different criteria altogether. Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
I hope we don't get to that one, Mike.
I'm not opposed at all to the idea. I think there is a market for it, especially in the right location. I think the location that we're talking about certainly would lend itself to that more so than some other parts of town, but. So if you had using Anthony's numbers, if you had a piece of property, you could build 30 smaller apartments. And you get, this is 0.75, so for that 30, you can build 40 of this type of unit, right?
And hopefully because of the reduced square footage, we will be able to rent them at a more affordable workforce housing rate than a single apartment.
It'd be less, maybe not that much, but it would be less.
I mean, the amenity part does drive up the cost of them a little bit, but I think it's a disservice from a number of aspects, just to provide a little unit that doesn't rent for very much and people are cramming there and are very unhappy.
Right.
Sure.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So unlike what we're about to talk about next, there are no percentage of median income or anything like that. You're saying basically the market would dictate. They're
Yes.
smaller, therefore they should be priced less.
Correct.
Thank you.
At the marketplace determine the value.
And if nobody builds with it, then
Yeah.
it was a building.
I have a question. What are our current standards on minimum unit size?
A studio is 400 square feet, a one bedroom is 600, a two bedroom is
750.
And a three bedroom is about 1,000.
So this doesn't contradict what we currently already have. It's more like they get certain benefits for.
Well, it's making a unit, we can have a unit as small as 250 square feet versus 400.
How much that?
There are a lot of existing units in the historic district that are probably similar in size, and some of the cottages, I mean, some of the historic cottages, you'll see 3-bedroom units as small as 700, or 1,000 square feet. And easily sets, like little cottages being 750 square feet with two bedrooms, so we have a historic building pattern with smaller units in many parts of the city.
In West Palm, they start with the minimum size of 450. 450 to 550, I think. We're doing a few projects in West Palm.
And the first completed micro unit building in the city of West Palm, which is sold for 84 million for the right to the hotel. Which there have been questions that if you create one of these, it would have a restriction that it would have to be residential, it would not be able to be converted to hotel.
Was that the building, one of the green
Called
buildings?
Current, and it's downtown West Palm on Trinity and on all of that is right behind Trinity Episcopal Church.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Nothing else? Nothing else? Okay, who wants to be the, don't forget public comment. Any public left? I think we ran out of publics.
I move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LBR text amendments, including ordinance 2022-13.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have 2 seconds. Okay. Any other discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
4-1. Thank you.
All right, your next one is ordinance number 2022-12, an ordinance of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending chapter 23 land development regulations, article 1, general provisions. Division 2 definitions, section 23.1-12 definitions, adding new definitions. Annual gross household income, gross rent, overall housing expense, and median household income. And article 2 administration, division 3 permits, adding new section 23.2-39 affordable workforce housing program. Providing for an affordable workforce housing program within the city of Lake Worth Beach and providing for severability, conflicts, classification, and effective date.
all right. So this program has been in the works for about 2.5 years. Several things, which is predicated upon finally have that. We have in our comprehensive plan an ability to have a 15% increase in density with the provision of affordable housing, but it wasn't defined very well and wasn't confident. So we've had a couple of projects interested in utilizing that aspect, and so we have worked through it to incorporate it as a possibility under the tier 2 of the affordable housing program. Tier 1 came out of the fact that we, through our sustainable bonus program and transfer development program, have afforded projects additional density. And there has been a great deal of interest inside the city and outside the city, that those additional densities should come at a requirement of some minimal amount of affordable workforce housing. So basing that 15% threshold as a jumping off point, tier 1 requires that at any point in a project, if you get additional density and consumer height, 15% of that additional new units would have to be set aside as workforce affordability. We have written our own definition of what is encompassed in that for a number of reasons. The accounting process for low-income housing credits, the city to county's exchange program, other housing subsidies is monumentally complicated. So this one is based on a unit is a certain size. It can have a certain number of people in it based on the minimum housing code. And regardless of how many people are in that unit, it should cost the same. Whether you've got 3 people in a 2-bedroom unit or a 2-bedroom with 2 people in it, the rent should be the same. We also set up the studio as being affordable to a person on a living wage. And that's a person making $15 an hour would not spend more than 35% of their income, gross income, on a housing option. This program can be combined with other programs such as the federal income housing credit, the state housing program, the exchange program, and whichever one has the more stringent requirements in terms of household incomes and occupancy would apply. This one can stand on its own. And it comes in 2 different ways that you can create for sale product or rental product. It has been vetted by a number of developers. It went to the CRA. There's a great deal of interest in it because also it floats more easily with the median household income of 4 individuals as published for Palm Beach County. And so we don't have to change the numbers as things evolve, and we know how fast the federal government moves and state government doesn't move very fast either. So this can evolve as the median household income goes up or down. It provides the option that the city can pay down and give the developer under the project another subsidy after 20 years to commit another 20 years of it being affordable. So there was a request that, well, how do we keep it affordable forever? I said, well, there's no way you can provide enough subsidy to a developer to keep it affordable forever because the depreciation schedule was 27.5 years. And after about 20 years, they're going to have to do some kind of investment to revitalize a project, no matter whether it was affordable or not. So the proposal was that the city has the first right of refusal to give the developer a subsidy based on median household income to again reserve those units or some portion of those units as being affordable for another 20 years. If we don't have the money, we just can't do it. But the sustainable bonus incentive program, as well as the affordable housing trust fund that can be set up if people do not want to meet this requirement, they got to pay a pretty hefty price to the city. And again, it's based on you're getting additional density through our sustainable bonus or transfer development program. You go to the next slide. I won't begin to move up all of that. So here's some numbers that are basic thresholds. It's either 40,000 or 50% of the median household income. This is talking about the payment that you have to make if you did not want to participate in the program, and vice versa. Let's say the city wanted a developer to provide more affordable units than what was required in the program. The city can provide these subsidies to encourage more affordability in a project. This can apply to any housing project in the city, multifamily. It includes townhouses, it includes apartments. It also can apply to home ownership, which is a big interest to some people on the commission. So it could apply to a single family home, and that one it's a little bit more complicated, but it can apply to that. You can combine the 2 tiers. Let's say that you are doing our program and you get to 100 units per acre, which is what Bohemian was. Under this program, 15% of that 100 would have to be provided as affordable. So in that project, 30 units by definition would have to be provided as affordable. If you wanted to increase the density of the project by another 15% or 30 units, all 30 of those would have to be affordable. The mix of units has to be the same ratio with the project itself. Let's say you've got a 1, 2, and 3 bedroom project. You have to have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom affordable units. You just can't make all the affordable units a studio. And so that is covered. The reporting aspect is fairly simple. There will be a staffing challenge on this one, but they have to provide. We're thinking that the developer could go to a third party, such as Housing Renaissance, Cultural Renaissance, or there's somebody else that helped the CRA with their verification of affordability. There's also a penalty built in, and there's 2 options for the penalty. If a unit comes out of being affordable, the baseline affordability, you're paying $15 for every square foot of that unit that wasn't affordable for that year. So if a 1,000 square foot unit wasn't affordable 1 year and it was supposed to be, you're paying a $15,000 penalty. There is and the commission has to make this decision. Once a unit comes out of affordability, the higher end penalty could be that you would require the developer to pay that $15,000 for every year left on the covenant. So let's say it was affordable for 20 years. It stayed affordable for 8. It came out and was not affordable for years 9, then you would pay 12 years of penalty, which can be a hefty sum, but it has to go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to be utilized to create other affordable housing. I don't know which direction the commission will go. That's one area where you might provide a recommendation as to which avenue of penalty you would prefer. And we'll express that to the city commission. And that's the crux of it.
Ballot position to fill.
It will be a little while, but the reporting aspect is where we're probably gonna have,
Yeah, you're gonna have to have
a challenge.
the CBA staff that
No.
just does this kind of thing.
I don't know if we have that, but we'll have to have a little something. But that trust fund that's being set up, we should have some money to help afford into that.
Is there any money in that point fund now? How much
The fund
money?
isn't even created yet.
Oh, okay.
ARPA funds could be used to get it seeded,
Right.
and then it would be have a revenue stream after that.
Yes, go ahead.
William, would you indulge us, if you would, please, on an explanation of the qualifying income restrictions, how the 45%, 65% of the median income, what that actually translates into dollars?
Well, let's take it right now. The median household income for family of four is approaching $80,000 in the county. So with the 45%, their household income is 45% of that, for that unit.
And the ones that exceed, they can afford more than 110 or I can't remember which one.
The larger the unit, the more income you can have.
So even though the median income is 80,000, they can still earn 100,000 on that. That'd be 125%.
Right.
Of 80,000.
But you could only be in the larger end unit with more people in it. Because
Understood.
part of the, I use this as an analogy with someone. Let's say that you were a family, and you have twins, and you're a household of four. And you're in an apartment that allows for people to live there, which could be a 2-bedroom unit. And your kids go off to college and you aren't part of the household anymore. Now your household is two. If your income hasn't changed, you have to move.
What about when they come home for Christmas?
That's not how it's defined. And so my argument was that family shouldn't have to move because the kids moved out. The household income hasn't changed. The kids maybe were 26 years old, and so they should be able to stay there. And so that was, one of the caveats is just one simple example of how our program is easier to work with and less of a burden on the families that live there, and also easier to administer. Because I don't want to keep up with it, and nobody really wants to. The changing evolution of
Right.
income, how many people live there, vice versa, and having will the income of that group changes or not. And so we're basing it again on the unit type, the number of people allowed to live in the unit based on the minimum housing code, and what the rent would be that's appropriate for that household.
And I believe you said this is applicable to all areas of the city, so all zoning districts.
It could, yes.
And I may have missed it, and if I didn't, my apologies. Is there provisions made to increase the density? So if someone put this in the standard single family, 7 units per acre, is there a provision in there where they can have more units per acre if it's under this program?
You could, if you did, if you wanted to do the 15% increase, you have to have a plan development. So again, you can only have one dwelling unit per lot. So unless you did a plan development, they created like lots that were smaller that you could actually fit more than 7 units per acre. This would can't apply.
Right, there's no example I can think, but I don't know the city.
Well, Lake Cove, which is a plan development, has lots that are smaller because of their set aside for their open space. They didn't exceed the 7 units an acre, but theoretically they could ask for a 15% increase under tier 1, and those units have to be affordable, and they might gradually get over the 7 units per acre.
But they were single family homes.
Right.
Developer would take that up front and be gone. A lot of what I'm hearing would be if it was a home like a rent type situation, which is why you're talking about penalty set years. So can you just break it down or in a very simple way? Why would a developer want to do this? They come in, like, what do I get for doing this?
Well, you're going to be getting additional density. You may get additional height. make it additional intensity, which is floor area ratio.
So the dollars wise, in the end, it's going to be more profitable for them to do this
It
because
could be.
the subsidies coming from.
And there's a movement, and granted, you know, if you're doing a buy right project, you don't have to apply this program, but if you're in the sustainable bonus program, you're gonna have to provide some affordable units. It's a form of inclusionary, it's not inclusionary, but a requirement. And there's a push that, there be a requirement of all developers, regardless of what they are developing, even by right, to provide affordable housing. I don't think it's gonna pass the muster test of attorneys, because they aren't getting the extra. And so, there was a great deal of conversation back and forth, that as we are giving projects additional density, height and intensity, we should be getting something back specifically for affordable housing. So this program is set up to address that, so we have parameters. Right now, in our sustainable bonus program, you have in there, you can provide affordable housing with no real definition. And we have a couple of projects, Gain and Port was all affordable. So we said, okay, it must have met the sustainable bonus requirement by default because it's all affordable. We've had Deco Green is proposing to do some affordability, but and then also Bohemian has 30, maybe 60 units from the county's exchange program that went toward its sustainable bonus requirement. But that was, you know, that was able to work out for the county. This program, I guess they can stand on its own and requirement to do it regardless of whether you're getting county subsidy or not.
Security.
Anybody has a question?
Oh,
Go ahead.
I have one more. You mentioned it started 2.5 years ago, and then you cited $15 as the baseline for a living wage. Where did that actually?
That came in the past 8 or 9 months. When I was thinking
That
about
wasn't 2 years ago.
No, it wasn't 2 years ago, because I couldn't create an affordable unit with the state's minimum wage. But then when it became a living wage, it was sort of a standard, and the city adopted a $15 minimum wage for its employees. I'm like, okay, well, that's a reasonable number. What would it take in a program to allow that person the benefit of being able to live on their own in a studio? And that's where the jumping off point was from the basically.
So it was somewhat of an arbitrary number and not just pulled out of the air, but based on those, because there's not a
Yes.
standard somewhere.
No,
And I was asking because those two terms are thrown around quite a bit, whether they change markets, currencies, countries, everything, they seem to be the same. So I was curious how our city arrived at that calculation. Thank you.
I will say, I don't believe $15 is any longer a living wage.
I don't
That's
think
why I
so.
asked about the 2.5 years, because that number has been used for quite a while, but its purchasing power is not less than.
And it's less prevalent today, being used today than it was 2.5 years ago or whatever. Anybody got any other questions? Do we have to send this back to the city or what?
Same as the previous two, a recommendation to the city commission as to what you would like done with it.
You had to ask. Anybody have any?
I will say, and I've already given a presentation to the executive board of the business development board on this, as well as our other aspects of microgrid. I've been asked to give another presentation to the entire stakeholder group on the 9th of June. And the county administration is watching this very closely. In fact, we are so far ahead of a commitment to actually really producing affordable units, our workforce units, because almost every unit, even the ones that have not been committed or be restricted, fall within the workforce housing range. So we as a city have reduced well over 1,000 units that fall within the workforce affordability range since I've been here, which is I think 4 times the amount that has been created in Park County. The county unincorporated.
You're gonna be a superstar tonight.
So the business development board was like, we gotta make this work. And so there are a number of developers who have already called about this. We do mixed income housing and are looking at properties to invest in the city. Whether they will pull it off or not, because as you mentioned earlier, the number of parcels where you can actually build, is most of them want at least 85 to 100 units is becoming
Harder,
increasingly scarce.
yes.
And assembling property in Newport Beach is very, very difficult.
Everywhere. I can't think.
Well, here's.
I think they get more
So many little pieces. A lot of our parcels are, you know. like
Already cut out pretty much, yeah.
35 or smaller lots. You gotta do a lot of those in order to get, to that number. You will be seeing a project that's almost half affordable very soon. Not based on this, but it's in county exchange program.
So nice, one more question.
Yes, you can.
You're very knowledgeable on it. And you brought up the rest of the county. What is it, or is this in any way working with the rest of the county? The conversation obviously always happens, you know, affordable housing, workforce housing. I think we know that White North Beach has a disproportionately high number of that already comparative to other cities in the county. And my question is there an effort being undertaken for that effort to be spread out throughout the county or state, or it's not a local, obviously it's a much larger one, but in this case, it appears the city is giving financial incentives for that. And the arguments been made before that there is a disproportionately low number of higher tax paying ones versus other neighboring cities. So how is that balance going to work with us being a repository for the other cities?
The balance is in a couple of ways. The programs that are established elsewhere in the county have not been as successful as they could be. And it's just a personal, professional opinion. They're too bureaucratic, too complicated. So ours is simple. Also, the way this income realm works actually provides housing to a lot of people who already live here who don't qualify for low, or poor income households. As you mentioned, somebody can make 120% of $80,000. Our median household income in the city is less than 40 for the household of 4. So we could have a whole bunch of these units come in and we'd actually get to be the county's median household income. There is a large need for quality housing, and I'm hoping that this program will replace existing affordable housing that is just really crappy.
What's our advantage of being able to say we provide more crappy housing than anybody else? There's no advantage to that for the city. I'm tired of hearing our politicians talk about
I hope
how
that
poor
this
we
will
are.
facilitate developers coming in and buying some of these properties and rehabilitating them or redoing them and making them a better place to live. Also, the county has a affordable housing trust fund, and they're talking about floating a bond. I don't know whether it'll pass to encourage affordable housing or workforce housing
In the county.
in the county, but it would be, the money would be able to be distributed anywhere in the county. And we'd approached the county 3 years ago and said, we have a very aggressive program that we could bring you projects that have an affordability component. If you would then in turn help us subsidize it or help buy it down. The county wasn't greatly interested at that point. Now they are. So there may be some funds from the county that can be funneled into this to help make this even more affordable. But again, the like a Banyan Court, some of those units are at 25% median household income for 4. So that's 20,000 is heavily subsidized. This has to stand on its own. And so that's why there will be, some people will argue that the people that are this is catering to are more affluent than the standard lower income family. But there is a missing middle, like our new staff are struggling to find a place to live. And they have degrees, they're coming as professionals, they're not making a pittance of a salary, but when a 1-bedroom unit, I'm going to give an example of a friend of mine. It's a very small 2-bedroom, 1-bath unit in the municipal county on Belvedere Road. The bedrooms, 1 bath, 2 bedrooms. The bedrooms are about 10 by 11. The rent in 1 year went from $1,700 to $2,350, and now they have to pay a proportionate share of the water and common area maintenance.
I think we all know that the housing cost inflation has not kept up with, they far outpaced the income, whether the market writes that in the next couple of years or not. I don't know too many people who don't think there's a bit of an affordability issue right now. Can you tell us that? And I think I heard some of it. How does the city of Lake Worth Beach benefit financially from this rather than subsidizing it at its lower, disproportionately low tax revenue, not disproportionately tax rate compared to other cities.
Well, this is not requiring any upfront money from the city. There's no like major housing project in West Palm, community development block grant money. They got housing exchange money. They got a number of things to actually have those affordable units.
But they have money to begin with.
Yes, we don't have that to give, but we do have a fairly high density number that we can give. And so in order to get those additional densities, the commission, and I have to agree with them, that some baseline percentage of those additional units should be affordable. 15% of a complex of mixed income is not a huge number that are considered affordable. All the other ones are gonna be market rate.
And that's the thing is like, if a development is getting a minimum of a 15% density bonus, then they would be subject to the 15% dedication requirement. So that's what triggers the program is the density bonus.
Right. Understood, and I was looking at these numbers, I've actually had discussions with people that pay very good money that live in the Keys, and I was astonished at how high their affordable housing number is. Like it was well over six figures, these people living together because of their massive affordability. A world different than what we have here.
That is
But
a whole
it-
different scenario.
That's what I'm saying, it proportionally adjusts for that, and
But it
these two couldn't be further apart from each
could be further apart, but we are losing people to lesser expensive from a housing cost standpoint. We've lost a lot of staff to Martin County, St. Lucie County, Indian River County. Just from here, they went there to have an affordable place to live and just got really tired of the commute and figured I gotta find a place to work up here. There's a service industry deficit. There are young professionals like one of our staff that really joined, took 2 months to find a place to live. And so we keep building lots of expensive houses. I do not know who's gonna manage them, who's gonna service them. A lot of people don't make what I would consider a super small income, but there is no housing for them.
Anybody who employs people understand the challenges that are going on right now with that balance.
And that's part of what William said is there is a missing middle. So in Lake Worth, we don't have housing, a lot of housing for our employees. You know, that are of that, a lot of people who work in our staff would like to live in the city, who are in planning and zoning and building, but they can't find a rental unit to rent that is in that middle price point.
Or even to buy.
Mhm.
And it's not just our apartment. We have, professional or semi-professional staff throughout the city clerk's office, linemen in electrical utility, water people, who all make, on the face of it, a decent salary and cannot afford to live in Newport Beach or anywhere in Fox County.
Yes, it's not like, it is.
But that just come back to my other question, are any of the other cities doing anything about it? Is there any collaboration?
I'm sure there's
the county doing
they talk like
anything, or is
they do.
it where is Lake Worth Beach just out there on its own?
There has been a housing coalition group been meeting for about 4 or 5 years. That the exchange program came out of that because the developers asked to develop it themselves and create it. It's been okay. We've had a number of developers interested in utilizing it, but there aren't any units to exchange. I'm like, well, that's what's successful. And the realization, it took us a while, there are people that don't necessarily want a single family homeownership option as their affordability option. There are people, like I did when I came out of school, I want an apartment. And I didn't make a lot of money. And that shouldn't, the only option for affordable housing shouldn't be the simple ownership of a 3-bedroom, single-family detached house out almost in the Everglades. There are people that part of this also is encouraging the livability where the jobs are or in close proximity to hopefully encourage more use of transit. I mean, a lesser affluent person has the least ability to sit at a bus stop and wait for 20 minutes to get on the bus to get an hour ride to West Palm. That's a large earning potential for them to spend on public transit. What if they could live with other people where their jobs already are and they don't have to spend 2 hours getting to and from work? They can spend those 2 hours working and maybe they wouldn't have to have 2 jobs.
If we had a hotel here with all the jobs that
Exactly.
there, that
Well, that hearing will be on the 7th next week. At the casino.
is there a hotel employee provision in here? No. Not part of it. That they would be places to work.
Yes, they would.
So that yes.
Anything else for William? I'm glad.
Indulge.
Well, thank you for that. I'm anticipating for 2 hours.
Is that pontificating or is that a question?
It's all good.
That's exactly.
We have the expert William here.
Yeah, what?
I said we have the expert William.
Wait,
On all our questions. Wealth of knowledge.
The walking encyclopedia of all things good and great. Okay, is there any public comments, on this particular item? Okay.
Great open.
Yes.
Move to recommend to the city commission to adopt the proposed LDR text amendments. Ordinance 202-1.
We have, some, okay, there we go. We have, there we go. Any other discussion? I'll call the vote, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. What did everybody look at, Laura?
Thank you. And I'll report back on what happens with the economic.
Please.
Once the business is on board.
You mean you're not gonna be over?
I would like to go on vacation sometime.
You're not, I'm no, next weekend, or I mean, next Tuesday is the. Oh, no,
I haven't, we don't have another meeting until July.
I'm, no, we have
One that's gonna be.
Yeah. All right.
you don't read the backup?
I do, but I haven't got out of this week yet.
Okay,
This week's been a lot.
you haven't got rid of all of us, let's put it back.
And you gotta have the agenda too.
We have 2 items on the agenda, those are the Detroit Street Plan Development and then Town Home Development Solar. Mhm. So,
But I'm saying you're gonna be over at the beach on Tuesday night.
Oh, yeah. I have to go.
Okay.
But besides those 2 projects, we have the residents of Lake Worth coming, we have East Coast Station coming.
East Coast what?
East Coast Station, we have the perch, and we have a redo of the Village Flats. It's all coming here in the next few months, under the old rules.
Yes, okay.
there should be a couple more items coming in
That's just how.
July and August. Some of those will all flush out with July and August, and then maybe another few more in September.
You don't do this.
Okey dokey. Ah, Sherry. You have on here. Organizational meeting, election of chair and vice chair. We weren't gonna do that tonight, were we?
Yes,
We were gonna do it.
Okay.
It's like.
we're kind of over the limit of when we're supposed to do that. So we need to do that. And just as a reminder, you all have a requirement to do the ethics, watch the video and fill out that form with your annual report that you filed to be a board member. So you can coordinate with Sylvina on that. We can send an email if you have any questions of where to find the ethics training online. If you haven't done it in a while, make sure you do it. It is an annual requirement for advisory board members. So and there is that form need to be filed annually as well, or is that at the
Yeah, the form
beginning?
gets filed annually.
Yes.
Yes, okay, so just make sure you're coordinating with Sylvina on that form and then the ethics training, which you would check when you fill out the form that you've completed the training.
You get mail, I can mail to you direct from
That's what the-
supervisor or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought so too, but I'm not sure.
And there's an email, you can send it back. Or you just have to
Right.
Mail it. or-
Okay,
With Palm Beach County Ethics.
right.
Yeah, so that's just your reminder to go do that and make sure you're doing that and fill out that form and so for the annual organizational meeting, we have the annual election of the chair and the vice chair. We're a little bit later than we usually are, but we've we've had with COVID and everything. We've had
We have good excuses.
we have good excuses, but we kind of need to keep on keeping on, so.
So what would you like us to do?
We haven't had a chance to campaign.
Do mailings, so
Yeah.
You know, if somebody has recommendations, usually there's a discussion, maybe somebody makes a nomination, that's a vote on the nomination for the chair. I mean, maybe a discussion of, because I know some of you were up and, so I know there's gonna be some folks that are up for reappointment, so. Did you want to wait till next month to do this? Because I don't know who's up for reappointment, I think.
It's Anthony, Greg, and Laura.
Anthony, Greg, and Laura.
Dad is okay, and Laura.
Oh.
And I don't,
So-
I forget about Juan.
No, I'm next.
I mean, if you guys feel like you want to do this next month, we can do it next month. So,
we might want to do that.
okay. That
Take
sounds
it
good.
down.
All right, we can do that then.
So.
Yeah, we'll do it on the 16th
Or the 20
or 15th.
2023.
So we'll just move that item to the 15th, which will be after the interviews and the reappointment, and then, discussion by the city commission. And, we'll bring that back then, in 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Well, I need to say, fairly comfortable to be back in this chair. Even though my, I haven't, I don't think the walls were blue last time I was here. Yeah, they are now.
But we gotta find your stool.
Yeah, we haven't found, we've got to put out an all points bulletin. There's a case of a missing stool somewhere. And I don't know where. Yeah, we've looked, low.
Yeah. Just recently. I would think in the last month or two.
I try and put me through. Okay, guys, if there's nothing else to be said, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We don't see you before. I'm sure we'll see you live yet. Over at the beach next Tuesday night. The fun and the frolics of that particular case. Is that all our discussion, William, next Tuesday? Just the Gulf Stream? Or will they be voting on other things, or do you?
The Gulf Streams, first reading is on Tuesday at the casino.
Yeah, that's what I was
We're gonna
doing.
make decisions in case of storm event occurs.
Oh, that's right.
That may change things a little bit, it's still be at the casino. The second reading is proposed to be the 21st, and there may be some additional items in regard to the Gulf Stream that night or a subsequent night dealing with whatever incentives or other associated requests. The size of the plan development requests that are going to become to the city. So they're, it will be wrapped up probably until sometime in July.
But the 7th will be a regular meeting. It won't just be the Gulf Stream.
It's a regular meeting, but it has almost nothing on the agenda. Except for that.
Except for
At last I looked, we had over 100 public comment cards just on the city's website already.
Will they all be read?
that's right.
No.
No,
They're not being read that night. Will
Um,
there be
we are
public
still
comment?
organizing how that's, they will definitely be in the record. How we will recognize them individually or not is being coordinated with city clerk's office.
How many will we be taking live? I mean, people that go over there and say, I want to speak.
If they show up, I mean,
They show up, fill out the card, they're gonna get the same every time, so. Okay,
they may limit it and they might shorten the 3 minutes to
Yeah, 2 minutes.
here because of the number of people that are anticipated to be there, but if you come and you want to be heard, we have to hear you. And if the meeting goes too late, it could be continued to another day where we continue to set public hearing to hear the public comment.
Is it a one item agenda that night, or are there other items?
There is a couple of things on consent and there's one other little item, but
Oh, I did.
it's the Gulf Streams.
Can you briefly indulge us on the new process for the appointments? As I understand, it's an interview process and vote by all, where before it used to be basically each one.
Fortunately, I'm not an expert on that, so I can't. Maybe Elizabeth can.
I actually don't know what it is.
We'll find out.
Aaron must know, Aaron knows
Part of
everything.
the ordinance.
Aaron knows everything.
I know it's a group interview, so we're not sure about how it's gonna roll out, so.
Do you guys get the applications in advance of our meeting?
No,
You know,
we might, but traditionally, no.
We're hoping to.
well, it's a, you know, some qualifiers to be on this board. as you
Yeah,
know.
we've made that painfully aware to anybody. It's
And,
not your, I mean, your board, but also the federation.
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you saying that these two boards are painfully, whatever?
No, we say they're painfully, they're tired of us reminding them that these board and the other board have specific seating requirements, and you just can't, you know, you've got to have various qualifications represented on both boards, and you have a limited number of citizens at large you can have, and without that complement, we would be in violation of the LDR, but more importantly, we'd be in violation of a certified local government program and motivation aspect, which could nullify us from being able to have a preservation program. So it's pretty important that both of you, for the boards, have the appropriate complement of people, because you are having quasi-judicial hearings, you make final decisions on really important aspects of things that happen to the city.
And it don't come to you overnight.
No, it doesn't. I think our code is like 300 and some pages long, so,
Exactly.
and it's getting longer after this, no?
Okay, it's not gonna get shorter. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Hopefully we'll see you over there Tuesday night, and if not, we'll see you on the 15th.
Do you need a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
I would love a motion to adjourn, and I thought somebody would offer one up even before I got a chance to ask for it.
I mean,
You made it?
second.
Art second. Let's get out of here.